Now, any questions there on those four speakers? We had Russell Smith from KPMG basically looking at the investment market, Garrett from the legal point of view, and then Francesco looking at the small scale biogas plants, the bagged plant in Frank. Any questions?
I know you're all exhausted, but maybe somebody has one.
Mark Kenny, Biomass Engineering. Just a quick question there. You were saying about IRR of 12%, but the consultation document that's out is also mentioning IRR of 12%, which basically means that there will be no return for the person because you're looking for 12% return. Is that correct?
Probably better than me.
Shall I take that one? Was it directed towards Garrett or himself?
Yeah, sorry, yourself, yeah.
Well, the 12% figure in my slides was the 12% target from 2020, that's all. Okay. Which is just the target that the country has to get to avoid fines from Europe. But IRR is very good, is probably a critical question, which Russell talked about as well. As a lawyer, I don't get involved in calculating what's good IRR or bad IRR, but at least the consultation document recognises that any asset in this industry, you need to recognise that people need to make a return. So 12% is, by reference to your slides, probably not bad.
Yeah, I think I understand what your query is though. So if you have a project that produces a 12% IRR and the funder comes in and says I want to earn a 12% IRR for 15 years, then there's not going to be an awful lot left for you, the developer.
Yes.
So the critical thing, and so is the concept we introduced there, the key thing is you have to change the cost of funding during the life cycle of your project. So what you do is the funder might say, the risk profile of building this and getting it operational, I need a return of at least 12%. But once it's operational, once you've proven it, you then have to replace it with cheaper cost of capital. And that's what we've done in the AD project. We give them 12% for the first couple of years, then you replace it with a cost of capital of 6%, and that leaves then, of course, 6% for you, the developer. So that's the concept.
One more back there.
David Wynn, AgBag AB Systems. I want to thank this afternoon's speakers, first of all. I found it very interesting to sit at the back here and listen to what you have to say. And as a mushroom farmer in the past, I know what you're up against. But one of the things that I have been dying to say all day is that I think one of the things that on the bioenergy side that we really need to look at is we need to stop throwing away so much biomass. As I'm from the UK, you may understand, and one of the things that we've seen is that even with the growth in the digestion market in the UK, there's still such a room for improvement because people are allowing feedstocks to deteriorate before they digest them. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, John Riley, Bordemona. This is probably for Garrett and Russell. The issue with the sort of technologies that we're talking about in this space, when you compare it to wind, for example, what's been successful, big issue is capex costs. Capex per installed megawatt. And we've set out in this country to provide a tariff for the electricity bit on these, which really is only a bit of cream on the coffee. And the assumption is you'll get gate fees for wastes, and you'll get this, and you get that, and you get the other. In terms of the RHI, our view would be, for the CHP technologies in particular, you need to be able to get your tariff for your heat and your tariff for your electricity. They're both renewable. They'll both be making contributions to Ireland's overall mandatory RES targets. And I'm just wondering if that's the general view, because as an industry, in terms of consultation, that's the single biggest message we should be giving here. Because this is all about missing money, guys. It's all, it doesn't matter where you get your revenues from. You've two chunks here, and we've missed the trick. We need to make sure we don't miss it the third time. I'm just wondering about your views on that.
Well, I put it in the slide insofar as, is the RHI a solo run? I was primarily I knew I could rely on you to get stuck into a debate, John. So it kind of surprised me, insofar as I think renewables is getting more and more sophisticated, and with auctions and everything else, and I think we're heading towards merchant. I think merchant is quite possible. So stuff that you would have been laughed out of the room at 5 years ago is actually happening quite quickly now. So that doesn't take away from the fact that everything has to wash its face. And is it naive to think that a heat tariff on its own is going to, produce an adequate base case for a project financing? That was kind of the reason to put it into the slide. It probably is, but if the logical sort of next phrase is, yeah, but you'll be grand, you'll be able to contract the electricity separately into a merchant market, into Google, into Facebook. Well, great, but I mean, we're not there yet. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I mean, it did strike me from looking at that going, is there something coming out separately on REFIT? Because I think it's important. REFIT 3 certainly covered power.
But it'd be a mistake. If it just covers these expensive technologies, and that's what they are. Most of them should be considered as sustainable waste management technologies.
Yeah.
And we're getting renewable energy off the back of it as a bit of a massive advantage to the policy space.
Yeah.
And it should be paid for. If they're not, I can't see how any of these things, the gap will be closed, because it's quite frankly enormous.
Well, Dublin Waste to Energy is a 68 megawatt REFIT energy project. That's on top of anything to do with people paying gate fees. I'm sure that's Bombardier might be something similar, is it?
Yeah, that's similar, but the general point, I suppose, in some of the UK projects in GB, we have projects that gets part of their funding from the RHI element, so gas injection gets funding through the RHI scheme, and then also the electrical output is under the feed-in tariffs. And standalone, the projects would not stand if they didn't get support for both the electrical component and the heat. So that's back to John's point. And who knows what the outcomes are going to be? But I think you're right. As part of the consultation, we have to say that if the tariff's wrong, or if it's focuses on only supporting one part of the capital cost, it as a whole is not going to work.
A final question.
Learning from the wind industry, there is a great deal of opposition now to wind in the country for various reasons, but one reason is that the locals feel that they don't own it. Literally, they have no shareholding in it. There's only one community-owned scheme in Ireland, whereas it's up at 50 and 70% in other successful European countries. And through consultation, the demand is that any more renewable energy would have a strong local ownership component, and it seems to be condensing around minimum 20%. And the likelihood is this is going to attach to bioenergy as well, and it has huge implications for financing. So, if you want support from local people, and I have tried to develop an anaerobic digester and got support from local people, and yet one important local person didn't support it, Michael O'Leary, so it isn't operational now. It's going to be more important. You are going to need local ownership, and that will have to mean more than just the farmers involved, but also open to people living in the area who may have to suffer extra traffic movements. They will think smells, they will think all sorts of things, and I would say there's an awful lot less impact than wind with bioenergy. But nevertheless, some of it may be near urban areas and settlements, in which case you will have further impacts. And that has to be factored into your financial modelling.
Yeah, I think the community ownership thing is getting an awful lot of airspace at the moment. I think it's a fantastic concept. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of existing wind opportunity that is being stymied maybe by local opposition. That the community ownership opens this up, we'll have a lot more opportunity to deploy. And on the AD space, like our experience in Northern Ireland of 100 planning applications, 90 got through without any objections. So generally the community hasn't been particularly against these. There's been a few where the one individual creates a local group, but generally they've been reasonably well received in their community.
Okay. One more question, sir?
Any more?
Any last questions?
Okay.
Okay. So I'd like to thank the last 4 speakers there, if you can put your hands together, and I'll invite Pádraig up here just to close off the conference. Cheers.
We've got to the end of the conference, and I'd like to thank you all for being here and continuing to the end. There's just 1 or 2 little things I need to say in wrapping up. First of all, I echo what Noel has just said. I'd really like to thank our speakers. I think we've had particularly good quality and wide-ranging presentations today, and it's critical to the success of the conference. I'd also like to thank the staff, our executives in Erbia, who put a lot of work into organising this conference, Teresa and Trish and Noel. Without their sterling work, this wouldn't be possible. And that leaves me with one very pleasant thing to do at the end. One of our staff, Teresa, where are you, Teresa? Teresa, we just realised very recently, has been 10 years with the Irish Bioenergy Association, and we thought it'd be a nice way to end this conference by making a small presentation to Teresa for her 10 years. So with that, the members who are here, I invite you to stay on for our AGM. We'll kind of reconfigure here and hold the AGM here at the front of the room. And I know there are some other members who want to have a discussion about the RHI after that. So the AGM will be relatively short. It won't take more than about 20 minutes. And if any of you can't stay, you might check with Trish as you leave. We need to be sure that we have an adequate quorum, so a few proxy forms would ensure that we're safe on that score, if you don't mind, as you leave. So again, thank you all very much.